Hey, thanks for tuning in. Today, I had the opportunity to sit down with Brandon from Training from the Ground Up again. But instead of getting his backstory, I asked him some deep dive questions into what it's like to own a gym, what some of the fitness questions you guys have been wanting answered, and some of those nutritional facts. Be sure to listen to the entire episode and subscribe to our channel. Do you want to get a free sticker? Go by Maximus today to pick up all of your proteins, creatines, and greens, and the pre-workout. And be sure to tell them at the checkout that you heard this ad on Everything in the Gym podcast and get a free sticker at checkout. Hello. Welcome back to Everything in the Gym podcast. I'm your host, Shelby, and today I'm sitting down with Brandon again from Training from the Ground Up. If you would like to see his full backstory, rewind a few episodes. He is an earlier episode in season 4, and he wanted to come back. But before we dive into today's episode, I have to give a shout out to our sponsors, Maximus Nutrition, CRC Roofing, Training from the Ground Up, and Orange Theory Fitness. Welcome back.
Thank you.
What you been up to?
Quite a bit. Mostly moving locations.
Yeah.
It's been a lot. It's good.
That's good. Okay, so moving locations, my first question is why?
The space we were in was always something of a stepping stone. Excuse me. And we frankly just needed more space to do what we do. Yeah. And we've been growing and expanding. And so this was kind of like the opportunity came up. And it was the sweet spot for size and location, affordability, all the things kind of just sort of lined up. And so there have been various logistical challenges with it, but I'm really happy with where we're at and where we're headed. Like we're up and running and functional and running with more stuff and more space and availability than we've ever had, but we have more coming, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so where did you guys move to?
We're on, it's 946 Arroyo Street. So if you're familiar with Caltech or Integris, it's that building. Mm-hmm. We're just on the left side of it. It is in that Jackson stretch, that kind of bridge between Knickerbocker and Bryant. So like if you're going from Knickerbocker to Bryant, you turn by Chick-fil-A and you turn left on Arroyo. We're right there by like Smith Floors, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what does it take to move one gym from one location to a new location?
A lot of help. Some very hardworking movers and a lot of volunteer effort and a lot of patience, especially with turf. Man, I've said this a few times and I'm going to get laughed at. But I would gladly move everything in that gym 100 times if I never have to move turf again. Turf is difficult.
Why?
It's heavy, but it's unwieldy, and I don't know how to grip it and grab it. There were 5 of us moving this one piece of turf we have. Most of the turf we have in there now is new, but we still took what we already had as well. And there were 5 of us trying to get it in the door in the new building, and I was like, this isn't moving. And then, Danny Kaiser, he owns Kaiser Flooring Center, comes in and just manhandles it by himself and embarrasses all of us. It's 2 movers, me, 2 coaches, both of whom are bigger and stronger than me. And we're like fighting for our lives trying to move this turf. You can't get a grip on it. You can't get in the right position. Boone comes in, Danny Boone. Yeah. He comes in there and he just like manhandles it. He's like, I got this. He's been doing it for decades, and he's easily the best that I have encountered. It was really impressive to see him manhandle that, but I never want to touch it again.
Mm-hmm. Do you, I don't know if anybody cares to know the answer to this, but I want to know, do you have to secure the turf down?
Generally, no. I think we glued it in one or two spots, but especially when you have a bigger space, you can generally loose lay it,
Yeah.
which means you don't have to glue it or anything. You just seam it so it's all one piece. So you lay it, you seam it, and then put thresholds, and you're generally good. We glued ours in like one or two spots, but for the most part, not really. Some of the bigger facilities I've been in, in Boston at Mike Boy's Strength and Conditioning, I think their entire facility, I want to say they have like 20,000 square feet, and 10,000 of that minimum is turf, and it's all just loose laid. But those big pieces, they don't really move a ton once you set
Yeah.
them. So.
Yeah. Okay. How long did it take you guys to move?
The actual moving we did over the weekend. The prep for the move was the month of May. We started, negotiating lease terms and prepping the space at the beginning of May. And then I had a couple of people volunteer to paint, which was really amazing of them, and they did a phenomenal job. I have help from some clients who are, handy people, and we've, been able to figure out some of the logistical challenges we had with like how are we going to mount these racks, where are we going to put this, how are we going to make sure that's secure, and it's like, and then we had also just some actual demo and construction to do, which we had hired someone for that too, and that only took all of that took a few weeks, and we had to rip out. The space was full of cubicles and old carpet, and so we had to tear down the cubicles, which that was that might be worse than the turf actually. Get those out, rip up the carpet. That wasn't so bad. Well, I'd take that back. That was not turf hard, but fortunately, again, I'm just really lucky to have some of the right people in my corner. And yes, I have staff that I pay as well, and we hire movers and all that. But it really is all hands on deck. I think I'm just now recovered from the actual work of it. But yeah, the actual move. Once we got the painting done, then we started working on flooring and our mounting set up, and then the space is ready. We finished our last workout Saturday morning and grabbed everything and took it over to the gym and set up what we needed to be running, the bare minimum we would need to run on Monday with what we have over the course of Saturday and Sunday. And we were able to run it. And then, the cable machines we use, we had to kind of figure out a different mounting system for them, but I think it's actually better than what we had planned, so I'm pretty happy with that. But that took us a couple weeks to get them up. Fortunately, the current programming, we're not really using them a lot, so we were able to work around that pretty well. But yeah, actually moving equipment, that's not too bad. I've done that, I think 6 times now where I've moved, because I started on College Hills, went to Burgard, then went to Knickerbocker, went to the mall, went to the space that we just left, and now here. So yeah, that's 6. But generally the setup, more often than not, we've done over a weekend.
Yeah.
It's just the prep for the space prior to it that takes time.
Is this your biggest facility?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How many square footage are you at?
About 3,500, which I think is probably the sweet spot. For our system, we don't require, a huge facility. And we don't want to lose that private feeling either. So I think 3,500 is really, that's what I've always wanted. I started out with an 850 square foot closet, but with this space, it's kind of it's at that threshold where if you go bigger, you start to lose some of that, hey, this is a private, place that is I don't know how to verbalize that, but you get what I'm saying, and much smaller, it's it's kind of crowded. So,
yeah.
This feels like the sweet spot for me.
So you've mentioned a couple of times your system. For those that are listening, what do you mean by your system?
It's a system of systems. The facility is designed around the programming, and when we work on our programming, you have to take a lot of things into account that you don't really need to take into account if it's just you by yourself in a public gym. Although if you do, and you're able to do the same things, you can get, triple the work done in a third of the time. And I really do mean that very literally. When I go on my own, you can't just do your own stuff. So I've gone and done other things. And, I think I mentioned last time that I had a bodybuilding coach, and he gave me a program that was very, traditional bodybuilding, and genuinely, like, I did learn from it. But then coming back to this, I'm biased, more efficient system, I don't have to spend nearly as much time in the gym. So when I say system, I'm referring both to the programming system, I'm referring to some of the logistical business systems in terms of how our facility is laid out. It's laid out with a flow in mind. So like you come, you start here, you move into this space, and then you move into this space. This allows us to get out of the way of the next group, and I say group, it's small groups, The most we'll have is 8, but we cap it at 6, and we leave. Right now, we keep it at 6, and we cap it there so that we have room for maybe 2 new people who want to try it out. We do this Bring a Friend Friday thing, and that way we can still give them one-on-one attention. But when I say system, I'm referring to like how we train and how we move through the gym. So it's difficult to describe unless you want to be very bored, or if you're just really into the nuts and bolts of logistics and like, hey, when you write this program, here's the training effect. Like you have to start with, what's the training effect? What is the desired effect? Okay, this outcome requires this stimulus. What is the best tool for that stimulus? That could be, rep ranges are fun. I would say they're less important than people think they are. Load is really the bigger variable there. And what I advise people how I tell people to think about it is, when you see a rep range, don't think stop here. Pick a good load for that number. Like if you can do 20 and you stopped at 8 because it said to stop at 8, that was a good warm-up set, but you didn't lift yet. You didn't do anything yet. You just kind of like primed the pump to start doing something. And of course that, varies from individual to individual based on, I kind of separate people into 3 levels. Like beginner is like, hey, you can still get newbie gains. That's like the first couple of years of training within our training system. After that, you're kind of intermediate for a while. And then once you're past that, like that's the point where you need something a bit more specific and you don't really need us anymore. You can come to us, but we'll probably give you some homework or refer you out at that point. Most people live in this like level 2. I live in that level 2.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a professional athlete by any stretch, and I don't intend to be. So most people, we live there. Sorry, I got a little off track. I lost my train of thought. Long answer to a short question.
Yeah.
I'm referring to, yes, logistics. Yes, the training. Yes, the business. Yes, the environment. It's difficult to describe again without boring people, I think.
Okay, so my next question would be, somebody walking into training from the ground up for the first time, what can they expect?
We're going to get to know you on a personal level and on a physical level. We do use a kind of our version of a movement screen, so we can kind of get an idea of how you're going to respond to various things and see if there are any big glaring red flags. And it tells us what to expect and where to start with our day 1 dose, and then we can titrate from there and just make sure that we don't put you in a position that compromises your safety, and we do put you in positions that ensure you're actually going to get the training stimulus you want. One of the more frequent reactions that we tend to get is like, we'll move a joint, and I say move a joint, like, hey, we're going to put you in this position. And people get pretty close, and then you make one minor adjustment that's like an inch. But that 1 inch changes everything about what you were just doing. It goes from being a painful, I can't do this exercise, to that's the best exercise for that stimulus for you. And so it's those little tweaks and things that really make the biggest difference. And on day 1, we genuinely try to keep people from being too sore, because you don't need to be sore to make progress. You just don't. When I'm training my hardest and at my peak, like if I'm at the peak of a program, I'm really not sore. At the beginning of a program, I'm pretty sore, but I like being sore. And if people like being sore, we can make you sore. But we try not to, because we want you to come back, for one. The important thing is getting into the habit of showing up and doing the work. So you can expect a welcoming, non-threatening environment where you don't need, like a lot of people kind of they're intimidated by the gym. And I have several people who they came to us as like a last resort. Like I hate gyms. I hate working out. Someone recommended you, so I'm here. And some of those are like our loudest supporters now. I can think of a handful off the top of my head that like now it's their favorite part of the day. And that is one of our core values, to be the best part of the day. And if we're ever not that, then I beat my staff up and make sure that, no. But that's our goal, is to make sure it's the best part of the day. Because, if you don't enjoy doing it, it's not going to work for you. So one is, safety. Like, you're safe to be here physically. We're not going to judge you for where you've been in your past or where you are now, where your starting point is. Like, that doesn't help anybody. So our goal is to, one, understand you so that we can best help you. And then two, protect you, usually from yourself. And then three, obviously, get you where you're trying to go.
So what makes training from the ground up different?
We can come back to the systems. I think culture is always going to be in the discussion. It's very familial. In my mind, even if all you signed up for was the free trial, like, you're part of the family, and we're going to treat you like family. So the culture is a big piece of that. It's a culture of get better every day. It's a culture of acceptance. It's a culture of like, of love and progress, right? But also, like, we're really good at what we do. I know I sound arrogant when I say that, but I feel like we've reached a point that I can confidently say, this is really good. And if there were something that I thought were better, we would do that. I think we're really good at, there is a trade-off for time and effect. Okay, well, we're really good at squeezing a whole lot of a training effect into 2 to 3 hours a week that we get you, and doing it safely. So we're really good at that. We're really good at working around injuries. We're really good at helping people, overcome some barriers that maybe have prevented them from working out in the past. We're really good with banged up people who used to work out but can't anymore. Like, well, that's kind of our gig there. And I know there are other trainers in San Angelo who are good at that too. We're good at doing it in a small group setting where it's funny how many people have come in asking for one-on-one, and I've convinced them, hey, just try the group. And they do, and they love it, because like there's an accountability thing, and it goes from trainer-client to coach-team. Okay, now you're part of something bigger than yourself. There's that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That probably sums it up. There are other people, you can see who's booked your times, and there are people who come at the same time and expect to see the same people. And we've had friends, friendships grow and develop there that just are really, really tight. And that's really cool to see. And the progress is better. The results are genuinely better in that small group setting than in a one-on-one. And it's cheaper. And it's more fun. And you don't have to spend 6 hours a week. And nobody's telling you you're a bad person because you ate the cookie. We might give you advice on how to best use that cookie and where you could put that in your day. And if you mess it up, okay, cool. Maybe we chunk this down. Maybe we're not ready for that step. But there's a huge psychological component to it. And I think we do that pretty well. I think we do it very well. And I think, again, I'm biased, I think our training's really damn good.
Yeah.
And if I could take credit for any of it, I would. I think I can take credit for like 10% of it, but the reality is I did a whole lot of due diligence looking for people who are really good at serving high volumes of people with high degree of measurable success and a very low degree of measurable injury rates or just nagging pains that I wouldn't call injuries, but they're setbacks, you know? So I developed some filters over the years that would, like, if they haven't done these things, if they aren't paying their mortgage with it after, 10, 15 years, if they are too busy writing to be training, I don't listen to them. And yeah, that means I'm going to miss some pretty good content. Like, yeah, there's some good information out there from some of those individuals. However, it ensures that I'm only going to get the stuff that's actually going to make me better, And so I've been working on the training systems for a very long time. And they came from people much smarter and more experienced than myself. So.
Okay. If there was somebody who was intimidated to step into the gym for the first time, what would you tell them?
It depends on the individual. I usually like to ask more than tell. So I would want to know why. Like, what was your past experience? And if it was because they had a negative experience with another trainer, I just apologize that was your experience. Would you be willing to come hang out for a little bit and just talk? And if not, okay, that's fine. Let's start with something you are willing to do. Maybe you just start going on a walk. Well, let's start you where you are and work from there. But I always want to find what is your limiting factor, and is it something that we can affect? And if it is, how can we best affect it without disrupting the rest of your systems? So this answer is going to come up a lot, but it depends.
Yeah.
But generally, I try to ask more than tell. And I imagine that any of my clients, friends, or staff watching this right now laughed when I said that, because I'm known for going on rants, long rants. So I try to ask more than tell. Doesn't always happen.
Yeah. It depends.
Yeah, it depends.
Is Ben Zaruba in better shape than your roof? Be sure to go check him out on all social medias through Ben Zaruba or CRC Roofing. And while you're at it, call them for all of your roofing needs and all of your home renovations, because they do both. Do you want to get a free sticker? Go by Maximus today to pick up all of your proteins, creatines, and greens, and the pre-workout. And be sure to tell them at the checkout that you heard this ad on Everything in the Gym podcast and get a free sticker at checkout. Okay, have you faced burnout? You juggle a lot of things. You're coaching your own health, your own gym. Have you faced burnout, and how did you handle it?
Multiple times. Absolutely. Yeah. I've been lucky that, because of what we do, because of our, the service that we offer is, it's a luxury service. It's not cheap, and as a result, it tends to attract people who have been successful in their own businesses. And I've been very, very lucky to hang out with people who are more successful than me. And I've taken their advice. And it's always different. Why are you burned out? Is it because you're working too much, or is it because you're not seeing enough payout for what you are doing? Okay, if I'm just spinning my wheels and wasting time on a low ROI activity, I need to shift gears. Maybe I need to work equally as hard, but on something that's actually going to give me some return on my investment. Sometimes that's the cause of the burnout. That's it. Sometimes, quite frankly, it's loneliness. Like, you're alone. You bring the energy to the gym if it's just you. Sometimes that can be very exhausting. For an introvert like myself, I know that doesn't sound right. Like, this guy talks and he never stops. But, if you ever see me out in public, you will notice I'm actually very quiet and withdrawn. And I do have to, I make an effort to be outgoing. But that's actually way outside my comfort zone. If I'm inside the gym and I can talk about the things that I know about, we're good. If I'm playing music, we're good. If we're doing anything else, I'm awkward. So part of that comes down to taking advice. When I'm told you should take the day off, I took the day off, and what I've learned is your clients want to see you succeed as much as you want to see them succeed. And it becomes this that's why I say it's familial. Everybody's kind of watching everyone's back. And I was the guy who, when I started, man, I would work on Christmas. I would work through my birthday. I would not take days off or close for holidays because I'm like, well, I'm going to work out. Surely someone else wants to. But the reality is I'm the weird one. I'm the one who has to obsessively follow my spreadsheet. The people that I'm serving, some of them are the weird ones. Most of them are normal humans who don't want to work out 6 hours a week or 10 hours a week or 12 hours a week. That's why they're with me, because we can get a lot done in a little time. So the burnout question has come up multiple times, over the last, since I opened. I opened in 2014. I started self-employed full-time in 2012. And so it came up during that time. It came up during other times. And it's why I don't allow my coaches to work a split. There are extenuating circumstances sometimes. Someone's out. Can we cover? Okay. If you're dying to work that split, all right, we can work that split. But working a split is the hardest thing I've ever done. And I did it for well over 10 years. And because you finish your morning and you're in coach mode and you're amped, you're good. You go home and you rest. And you get just enough time to start resting, and it's time to get back in and amp back up. That was really, really challenging. So working a split was hard. That definitely led to some burnout. Being an introvert who has to play the extrovert, I love my clients. I genuinely love being around them. That doesn't mean that it doesn't cost me energetically to bring the energy to every single group for every single person. I want to, but my glass can run out, and I may not have the opportunity to recharge it. One thing that helped with that was, instead of every hour on the hour, every 75 minutes. So you get a little 15-minute break to kind of recharge. That made a huge difference. Little things, tweaks to the system. This is why I say I've been refining the system. And when I say system, I'm not necessarily just referring to training. It's my personal system for life as well, and the logistics of how we go through our day. So burnout, I don't know that I've ever had it from overworking. I like working, but I have had it from working on the wrong things, or from being overwhelmed by having too many things to work on. I've said the pixels make the picture. From looking at the picture and not being sure which pixel to start on, or not understanding which pixels are more important than the others. Or not, taking time to just go get some Brandon time and then come back. I think now, I think now I have people in place, my coaches honestly are better than me at what they're doing. That's why they're doing it. I'm the worst coach in that place, which is not a knock on me as much as it is I'm trying to be a good coach, but it comes more naturally to them. They're better at it. They don't rant like I do and piss people off. And that helps. And so I can come in, I can step back, and I can look at the whole picture. But with the burnout question, it's always kind of a different cause. And at the same time, it's always the same cause, if that makes sense. Your glass just runs out. Why it runs out, though, may vary. So for me personally, I think I answered it 5 times in that rant somewhere.
Okay. So you have had lots of experience with your own gym. What are some of the mistakes you've made along the way?
Burning out coaches early on.
Yeah.
Why didn't you read these 20 books this week? Again, I'm the weird one. I love reading. I love being on PubMed and then asking someone to help me interpret studies and to put them into context of the rest of the literature. I love doing that stuff. What I should have done is let me distill the lessons from this book down and put what we need in the system and just tell you what I need you to learn, versus, well, there are several concepts in this book and I need you to read the whole book to get them, and then we can have a long discussion. Then we do a book club. It's hey, what book are we going to read this time? Let's check in and see what you got out of it. Here's what I got. Cool. What book do you guys want to do next? And it's usually a self-improvement or a management thing.
Not Fourth Wing?
And I never did. I started it, and then I got distracted with so many other books that it's still in my Audible, and I haven't finished it. But yeah, not typically Fourth Wing. But that for sure was a huge one. And then expecting clones, like, well, just do it exactly how I do it. Like, no, that's the wrong answer. Just get the job done the right, like as long as it's done safely and effectively, and we didn't compromise either of those two things, and the client was happy with it, we did it right. Okay, maybe I need to change how my approach is. And I was very closed-minded, honestly. Like, I was kind of a hard ass with some stuff. Like, no, this is my way or the highway. Huge mistake. Rather eventually opening up the table to open discussion and dissent. And now oftentimes you're brought with something that like, okay, why don't we do this? Well, because when we tried it, here's what happened. That's what happened to me when I would go up to MBSC and I'd ask, well, like, why don't y'all do this? Well, when we tried it 15 years ago, here's what happened. What about this? Well, we tried that. Here's what happened. And they have a much larger sample size. They might see in the summer 1,000 people a day. And again, using a system very much like ours. Their groups are larger and they have more coaches per group, but same idea.
Yeah.
So that was one mistake, was like burnout and unrealistic expectations and not systematizing my onboarding process. And it took me, I didn't get a good onboarding process together till probably 2023. And now I have an onboarding process that I'm like 80% happy with, but it definitely gets the job done and it gets people ready to coach. I am still very slow to hire. That is a lesson. Someone else made the mistake of being too quick to hire. Oh no, wait, that's not. I was too quick to hire a couple times. And those are hard mistakes to undo. So I'm very slow to hire. The onboarding process there's like a 3-month probationary period, and I want to make sure that you've hit these specific metrics, that you are doing these specific things consistently. I want to know that I can rely on you. I would say a lot of the mistakes I've made, there have been some training mistakes for certain. Absolutely. I can't think of like some of the specific ones, but I have nightmares about some of the, injuries that I've seen. And honestly, they were my fault. If I take responsibility for that, I can have an impact on preventing it in the future. If my coach makes a mistake, that's my fault, because I didn't give them the tools they need to be successful, or I hired the wrong person. Now, I definitely have the right team, so I didn't give them the tools they need. Other mistakes I've made, I think, overworking on the wrong things, leading to my burnout stuff. Not spending enough time at home, or not bringing my kid up with me enough. Pushing my family too hard, for sure. I did learn you don't work with family. I might train my mom, but you don't nutrition coach family, and probably best if you don't write programming for family and coach family, because it's just, there's always going to be an argument, so, I mean, we could, if you're patient enough, I can rattle off a couple thousand, I'm sure, but those are the big ones, for sure, that I made. I think setting unrealistic expectations, thinking I knew more than I did. There's an inverse relationship between competence and confidence, and I certainly fell victim to that, the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is why now I'm such a big, everybody needs to be aware of this. The more confident you are in a thing, especially if you're new to it, the less competent you are. And what tends to happen is here's your confidence, here's your competence. What'll happen is you learn more, which teaches you that you have more to learn. You don't know what you don't know. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. And your competence comes up and your confidence goes down, and then it kind of does this, and you run into imposter syndrome. And then you kind of start to do this a little bit, And I feel like I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty competent. I know there are people smarter than me and better than me at this. But if I ever get a chance to steal their stuff, I'm going to use it too. If I learn, like I said, if I learn of something better, I'm going to implement it. Now, I think that actually leads to another mistake I've made, is changing the entire program based on learning something. Once you have your program, especially if it's working and it's proving to be safe, changing too many things too drastically based on learning something, unless it's hey, you're actively hurting people, probably a bad idea. We've run some experiments and it's okay. now we know again, like this just solidified why we do things the way we do them. So now it's like when I learn something new, how can I implement that? The first question is, can I implement that at all? You know, and there's always going to be a cost. If I'm going to say yes to this, I've got to say no to something else. Is it worth the trade-off? What's the cost? Is there an orthopedic cost? Is there a logistical cost? Is there an energetic cost? Because like some people are like, I hate this exercise so much, I never want to come back. It might be a really effective exercise for you, but I don't want to burn you out either. So like, I've got to find those things. You know, that's not a common one, but it's possible. You know, I've had a few people with like, they got hurt doing a specific exercise in the past. And while they are cleared to do it now and totally can, it's a process to reacclimate to even just being in the gym or doing an exercise similar enough to that one that it scares them. You know, so yeah, there's a cost.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be another mistake that I've made is trying to change too much too fast.
Yeah.
Certainly mixing up the program too much early on, I think it was a mistake. I know it was a mistake actually. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, my next question for you. So say someone only has 30 minutes to work out a day. What is the most effective way to get that 30 minutes done?
Pick 3 exercises that hit push, pull, and legs. Rotate them. If we're being really, really efficient, and this is actually this is a common scenario where like, oh, I can't come today. I'm only going to get to be there for like 30 minutes. I'm like, great. That's going to be the hardest workout of your life, but we're going to get a lot done. So like when I have to simplify things to that degree, like, great, I love it. Push, pull, and legs can be wildly effective. You know, one of the most effective programs I ever did was, it was brief and it was once every 3 days. And, you know, I grew like a weed. Like it worked. I never want to do that program again because it was also really hard. And that's another principle that you'll notice too, is like the more complicated a program is, the less actually challenging and stimulating it really is. Whereas if I just say, here's a heavy weight, put it on your back and squat it 50 times in one set, that's going to do a lot for you. I don't do that to people, but I've done it myself and it sucks. So push, pull, legs. I would say like pick 3 movements that take minimal setup, minimal warm up, but put your joints in a full range of motion, feel good on your joints, give you a good pump in the target muscles, which push, pull, legs should be the whole body. You know, so like I'm not going to put you on a leg press because we want to hit as many muscles as possible in as short a time as possible, but we also want to hit them effectively. A deadlift, despite popular belief, absolutely does train your back. So that's a great one to put in there. We could do I won't go off on a tangent. I'm sorry. But like if I pick 3 compound movements, and if you're brand new to the gym, pick 3 compound movements that will teach you to do them better. Because now when you do have more time and you do have more access to more equipment, you're going to get a huge training effect compared to the training effect you would have gotten if you started on the machine. Like I can guarantee you, somebody who can squat double their body weight all the way down until like you crack the walnut behind your knee, can sit down, pause in the bottom, take a few breaths and stand back up. That person's going to get a whole lot more out of a leg press than somebody who can't like actually just squat with their body weight. Mm-hmm. You know, plain and simple. The girl who can do 10 chin-ups can eat more donuts than the girl who can't.
Yeah.
So like, all right, what are the things that lead to that? That's a deeper question, but that's why I'm there, because I can make that choice, or rather my coaches can help you with those decisions on which 3 exercises, how should we execute them, where should we start, how do we, cycle and periodize them. Mm-hmm. But if you've got 30 minutes, push, pull, legs, keep it as, I don't like this term, functional as possible. Use as much range of motion as possible. Make sure you walk out feeling better than you did walking in. Mm-hmm. Minimal equipment. A pistol squat. I don't love like a pistol squat, but I love a 1-leg squat to that depth if you stand on a box, because you get more movement from the hip that way. So like that would be a lot better than a back squat in terms of leg stimulus. In fact, there have been force plate studies that show that the amount of force is per leg ridiculously high. I think, don't quote me because I could be just a slight bit off, but it's pretty close to doing a single leg squat with no external load to the same depth that you do your squat is the same as putting your body weight on the bar and doing that squat per leg, minus the torque, spinal load, compression. So minus the risk, basically. And of course, minus a few benefits. There are some benefits to axial loading. Do most people need that degree of axial loading for what they want? No. Does that mean we're not going to squat? No, it doesn't mean we're not going to squat, but we've only got 30 minutes and 3 exercises.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a huge ROI exercise you can do anywhere.
So would you, if you only had 30 minutes, would you put cardio in on that day, or would you make cardio a different day?
Your lifting's going to end up being your cardio that day. So I like to wear a MyZone. We have actually a projector that projects everyone's heart rates on the wall. And using that for your conditioning is better for fat loss. It's better for the actual cardio effect. Most people think like I need to go hard for a long time. And it's like actually zone 2, which I think we talked about last time, is lower intensity. And we can get a zone 2-esque effect. Like, okay, do your set, recover to 65% of your max heart rate, do another set. That eliminates some of the fatigue, not all, but you've caught your breath and you're ready to work. And while your legs are resting, you can do your upper body push. And while your upper body pusher muscles are resting, you can do your upper body pull. And while they're resting, you can get back on the legs, which again, another reason to reduce the axial loading for that specific program, because if I were to do a deadlift followed by a bench press followed by a loaded chin up, you're not going to get the most out of those in that scenario if you're putting them together like that. But in terms of just making the tissue itself stronger, like a single leg squat, some maybe loaded push-up variation, and maybe a loaded chin-up, depending on where you're at there. That's a pretty well-rounded little program there.
Can you elaborate on the difference between conditioning and, say, weightlifting?
Conditioning is I'm going to make you tired. But it's more than that too. And conditioning is a little bit more sport specific. We want you think thresholds. If I'm doing a 5K or a marathon, here's my maximum aerobic speed. We call it MAS, and we base it off some bike testing. We don't use this a ton unless we need to, but I've used it and it's very valuable information to have. But here's my maximum aerobic speed. Going faster than this, we go anaerobic, which means now I'm feeling burning, I'm breathing heavy. I can't hold this speed for very long, but I can hold this speed for a long time. Okay, that's going to be at, whatever percentage of your maximum speed. If I raise your maximum speed, that little percentage goes up with it. We've got these 10-pound weights here. If you were to, pick one up and hold it out here for a pretty good while, your arm's going to get tired really fast. But if you're so strong that you can hold a 30-pound weight out here for a while, when you pick up the 10, it doesn't feel like nearly as much. We raised your thresholds. So conditioning is more about raising thresholds. Zone 2 is a completely different thing. So cardio and conditioning are not the same, in my mind. Do we get some of both? Yes, we get some conditioning from weightlifting, especially in our system. We get some strength from... You really don't get strength from conditioning. If anything, you just get weaker. Sorry. The only exception to that is sprints with athletes. If you're over 20, sorry, if you're over 25, you're a retired athlete. Yes, you can continue to be an athlete if you make your money doing that. If you're not making money doing that, I can't in good conscience train you like that, because your risk is going to go up, But if it is an athletic endeavor, truth be told, if you do it really well and you time it and you're doing it really hard, sprinting is kind of all you need. As the guy with the strength training bias, if all you're trying to do is get really, really good at your sport, sprinting at maximum intensity, at least a couple of times a week, can be all you need. You're still going to get a ton of benefit from the weight room. There's a lot to be said there, but and so that's where strength and conditioning might kind of combine a little bit. But I don't know. I know this many people who are going to take that approach and benefit from it versus just get hurt.
Yeah.
Because when I say sprinting, I don't mean run fast. I mean run like your kid is a half mile down the street and there's a semi truck headed toward them. I mean run like you literally all you see is red. I mean run ignoring the burning in your chest, ignoring the fact that your eyes are about to pop out of their sockets. I mean, run to the point that things are tearing. You know, we've heard, well, I'm not going to, that's another tangent. Sorry. So no, I'm not gonna put people through that. We can get the same effect through weight training. So yeah, there is a big difference between strength and conditioning, and like I said before, they shouldn't really mix too much. You can get a little conditioning from strength. You can get a little cardio from strength if you do it right, or you can get worse if you do it wrong. And you can do conditioning wrong to the point that you get the wrong type of ventricular hypertrophy in the heart. So now your resting heart rate has gone up, and your ejection fraction has gotten smaller, and that's where it's like, hey, it helps to know how to use these tools. I have a hammer. I should not hit my thumb. And I should probably focus on nails, not screws, not bolts. Right? So right tool, use the right way for the right job. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Or did I rant for too long there? I'm very tangenty today. I've been on a few today, so it's like I'm already in that kind of like.
That's why we love you. Okay, my last question for this segment. Is there a best diet, or is it purely case by case?
If we're approaching this purely physiologically, I'm going to say there's a best diet, and I'm not going to talk about what it is. But we're approaching this in the real world. And that's where it is case by case. The best diet is the one you'll stick to. I don't see anybody sticking to carnivore or keto for life. If you like it for a while, okay. Let's move off that after a while, though, because your compliance is going to slip, and now you're actually in a worse place than you started, because if you have the genetic predisposition to respond poorly, then your lipid profiles are going to respond poorly. And yes, there is a direct link to that and heart outcomes, morbidity. Like, that's undeniable. It's probably not the link that people think it is. Like, you don't need to worry about the cholesterol in the egg yolk as much as you need to worry about your just total daily intake of calories, But yeah, there's a point where I'm going to start talking about which fats in which amounts, and there's a sweet spot, If you like being vegan, cool, we can work with that, and we can even balance that out to be your perfect diet. If you like being paleo, we can work with that too. If you like being if you like intermittent fasting, yeah, we can work with that. Are any of these the perfect diet? Absolutely not. They all work on, if we're talking just about weight loss, they all work on the same basic principle of calorie restriction through, some other means. Someone brought up a post. This is where it's good to get off Instagram for a while and do what we'd call a fitness fast. Like, just cut out all of the intake for a while mentally, so that you can clear your palate and think straight for a little bit. Because you can also be overwhelmed and overloaded with all these different choices. It's like, unfortunately, the simplest answer is generally the most correct one, or at least on that spectrum, it's closer to correct than the more complicated answer. And this has two answers, and one is simple and one is complicated. So bear with me. Psychologically, the one that you feel most comfortable with is the best diet if it's leading you in the direction you want to go. And that includes your blood work. That includes your performance. That includes your hormones. That includes your cognitive clarity. That includes all of the things. If you're going the right direction, cool. Is it as binary as good, bad? Almost never. It's more like, what are the trade-offs we're making? Just like in programming, there's no such thing as a perfect program. You're always going to have too much of something and not enough of another. So you just try to balance it out by swinging the pendulum in the other direction. The pendulum never stops swinging, so you just have to keep balance through imbalance, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so with diet, it's pretty similar. Like, where are the trade-offs what are the trade-offs you're willing to make? And this is where it gets fun with like behavior change. And that's the stuff that I really like playing with. When I do nutrition coaching, it's always the mind game first. Like, all right, here's your comfort zone, right? And here's where you want to be. Or rather, here's the outcome. Well, also over here are the behaviors that lead to that outcome. So my job is not to do this and transplant you, because that will generally lead to, if you think of your comfort zone like a bubble, that will generally lead it to popping. Mm-hmm. And now you're just back where you started, or worse, because you're going to rebound, gain some extra weight back, or whatever your issue was in the beginning, not everyone's trying to lose weight. And I think that's a thing that needs to be accounted for. There are a lot of women who think they need to lose weight who actually would look the way they want to look with an extra 20 pounds above where they currently are. They need to, to get what they want requires them to gain weight and be heavier than they're comfortable. Anyway, so the behavior change model that I kind of use is like, you're in your bubble. All I want to do is bring you closer to the edge and let gravity kind of pull that comfort zone over a little bit, right? And I was actually talking with a nutrition client about this the other day who was like, man, it was really comfortable. So I felt like I was doing something wrong, but the scale's down and the clothes are fitting better. I'm like, oh, okay, that means we did it right. It shouldn't be hard. If it's hard, it's temporary, right? Unless you like living in suffering. But the idea is the behaviors that got you where you were, they are over here. The behaviors that get you where you want to be, they're over here. So if I can make you comfortable living here, then we've won. And the side effect to that is you're now equally as comfortable as you are with these new behaviors that you've acquired over the last several years of practice, not weeks, sorry. You're now equally as uncomfortable with the old behaviors that got you what you didn't want. So we kind of just nudge the bubble. And you get less comfortable doing the old thing. You get less comfortable with that sensation of being overly full. You get less comfortable with compensating for emotional duress with food. That's a big one. And you get more comfortable with what you found to replace those behaviors with. And that's the thing too, is like if you pull behaviors out, you just create a vacuum. If you pull food out, you create a vacuum. What are you going to fill it with? Something is going to fill that space eventually. Usually the same problem plus, if you don't already have a plan in place. So I prefer to push things out. All right, we can do all these things. But first, why don't we also do this thing? Why don't we add some vegetables here? And that's a really good starting point for a lot of people. Is like, why don't you just add more vegetables to this? I don't care if they came from a can, if they're frozen, if they're fresh. I'm going to get feedback for this statement, but organic is just a sales tactic. It doesn't actually mean the food is healthier. Sometimes it means the pesticides they did use are actually more dangerous. I personally don't care if it's organic or not. Just make sure it's a vegetable. Like if we're discussing whether like table sugar or high fructose corn syrup is worse, if we're in the discussion where that's going to matter, you're just consuming too much, period. Right? And if you're going to tell me that all sugar is bad or toxic, then you're also telling me never to eat vegetables again because it's the same shit. Sorry, I can curse.
That's all right.
Bleep. It's the same stuff, right? That sugar is the same stuff. It breaks down into the same stuff in your body. It goes to glucose. And I think it was before the record, I was eating a Cliff Bar and you're like, is that how you grow muscles? And I was like, actually, yes. That's a whole different discussion. That doesn't mean you have carte blanche to, down pixie sticks all day. But it does mean if you understand the tool, what it does and how to use it, you can use it. That's the game that we play, right? It's not, if there's no nuance in the discussion, there's your red flag to stop listening to that person. If there's zero nuance, there's zero credibility, right? You'll usually hear very smart people who have been around for a long time with a large degree of success. They'll usually say things like, yeah, here's the evidence, so we can be pretty sure that. We can be relatively certain that. Or in my experience, here's what happened. Those are generally the words that you want to listen for. Always and never will rarely come up. I'm still going to say never do burpees. There's always an outlier to the rule, right? But generally speaking, there should be nuance in the conversation. So again, long answer to a short question. Is there a best diet? It depends.
It depends. Case by case.
Case by case, for the most part.
Are you looking to burn all of those calories, with all the good food that we're eating this summer? Be sure to go check out Orange Theory Fitness for a science-backed workout sure to make you sweat. Do you want to get a free sticker? Go by Maximus today to pick up all of your proteins, creatines, and greens, and the pre-workout. And be sure to tell them at the checkout that you heard this ad on Everything in the Gym podcast and get a free sticker at checkout. All right, let's get into Deck of Cards.
Deck of Cards.
Deck of Cards is sponsored by Training from the Ground Up.
Hey, I've heard of them.
Pretty great.
You know, I've heard they're pretty awesome, and you can trust me because I have zero bias here.
Yeah. All right, same as last time. Blue card first.
Okay. If you could give your younger self advice, what would you say?
I would say don't sell yourself short. Don't, because oftentimes when you're younger, you do have a lot of like imposter syndrome, and you're not confident in the steps that you're taking or moving. And oftentimes people are in your ear, you should do this, you should do that. And it's a lot of, well, maybe I should be doing this, or maybe I should be doing that. And I feel like if I would have just, because I was working out and not a whole lot, but I did love the gym back then. And I don't know, a part of me feels like if I would have just leaned into some of the things that I liked more and felt confident in that, keep going and lean into the things that you actually love to do.
Totally. Yeah. Can I piggyback on that a little bit? Yeah. I think that's one of the big, like, I've had a lot of business mentors over the last 15 years or so, and they've all kind of said the same thing: ready, fire, aim. It's ready, fire, and then aim the tracers, because the reality is no business plan, no plan survives contact with the real world. And so, like, if you can just get in the right general direction and adjust from there and keep going because you love it, like, all right, cool. The gym doesn't look anything like I'll take that back. The gym doesn't look a lot like I expected it to look 12 years ago, but it has the same direction, the same directional focus. Things are different that you can't foresee, same thing. And even with your fitness, like, you don't need to do the perfect program. You just need to not be on the couch. Go do something that doesn't hurt and that you like. That's a great start. If it's burpees, cool, go do burpees. That's a whole lot better than sitting on the couch eating Cheetos.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah. All right. Is there anyone in the fitness community that you look up to, and why?
Oh, absolutely. One of my favorite influences is Mike Boyle. He's a guy I've learned so much from. Alan Cosgrove, he's in California. I think Pat Davidson is really, really smart. I think that Mike Israetel has a lot of good principles. I love the way that he systematizes things. And I would love to have a discussion with him. I've already had discussions with some of the others, but I would love to sit down and have discussions with him because I have thoughts. But I like the way he approaches things with his, like, it's a very systematic view, which that appeals to me. Jason Ferrugia is another smart one. And honestly, that list can go for a long time. And these are all people who passed my filters. Charlie Weingroff is an absolute, just like, brilliant madman, and I love it. So, yes.
Yeah. I feel like I touch with like a lot of fitness community people, and you can learn a lot just from being around people in the fitness community. But there is more of like a influencer that I've been keeping up with a little more. Her name is Meg Jacoby, and she is a High Rocks athlete. And I am currently on a High Rocks venture.
Yeah, you recently did a...
Yes, I did one in March. And she won Worlds in High Rocks last year. And then she had a spinal injury and had to have surgery on it. And so the motivation that she has had to like pull herself out of that and come back from it, and the training and the lead up. It's been cool and inspiring to watch. And so that's somebody that, I look up to.
I can think of a lot of athletes that have, had similar stories. One of my favorite stories is Brian Carroll, who was a world-class powerlifter, had a severe, what did he have? He had a cracked pelvis, crushed vertebra, multiple herniated discs. And without surgery, got back to squatting over 1,000 pounds without pain. And there's a great book that he and Stuart McGill, who, I don't know why Stuart McGill gets flack. He genuinely is like, if you want to talk to spine, that's the guy. And I think anybody that criticizes him doesn't understand what he does and hasn't seen what he does. But he's the reason I can walk. So that's enough for me. But anyway, they wrote a book together called The Gift of Injury. And very similar story. So I haven't heard of her, but that's it's interesting. You think about the rehab world, and it really is like, I was thinking about this. I said this to someone yesterday, and I was thinking about it on the way up here, is how much expectation drives outcomes. It is the pavement on which you're driving towards your outcomes. And it can be a smooth road, it can be a rough road, or you could pave it in the wrong direction, and now you're just somewhere else, But expectation tends to drive outcomes more than, I always say, like, how you're doing something is really more important than what you're doing. And how you approach it mentally is going to determine how you do it. So, man, I hope the best for her.
Yeah, great words too. Green card.
Green. You are creating the ultimate sandwich. Sorry, the ultimate sandwich. What goes on it? Ultimate sandwich.
Yeah. I'm feeling, we're going to go, white or wheat bread. And then let's put some pickles on there. And let's go ham and cheese. And then I think I want to double layer it. So another slice of bread, but this time instead of pickles, we're going to go jalapenos. Yeah. And then another ham and cheese and another piece of bread. And then ultimate grilled cheese.
For a split second there, I thought you said a slice of pizza.
Oh,
I think I'm hearing what I want to hear.
That would be interesting.
Not that I'm going to admit that I've done that. Does a burger count as a sandwich? Like, that's a sandwich, right?
I think so. In between two layers of bread.
I honestly just like a good burger. Like, just a straight, basic. I like to get the leanest meat because I genuinely like the way it tastes better than the fatty stuff. I like to get like a 96.4, like beef.
Yeah.
And then I like making my own, but that on like a brioche bun with, the folded lettuce and the tomato and onion and pickles, the bread and butter pickles or the sweet ones, like, heck yeah. And then because I like food with my condiments, I like to douse it in ketchup.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I love ketchup on a burger. There's so many people that are against ketchup.
Oh, no. Ketchup is actually the main food and the burger is the side.
Yeah.
I'm dipping the burger in my ketchup just to get something to chew on while I eat my ketchup, really.
Weird question. Do you drink the pickle juice out of the jar?
I didn't used to. The last couple of years, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm digging it.
I love pickle juice. I love jalapeno juice. Like, oh.
Well, that's too, like, that's kind of an athlete thing too, is like, the more physically active you are, the more electrolytes you're going to need. And, I used to drink like just a bunch of RO water, and I found like when I started adding salt and maybe some potassium to it, like, hey, I don't actually need to drink 2 gallons a day to feel good. Yeah. I can get away with 1 or sometimes less if I'm not very active, which these days I'm not coaching as much, so I'm not quite as physically active as I used to be. So, but yeah, pickle juice is a jam.
Yeah. What is the one skill you believe is most important for your success in your field?
I think it applies universally, but accurate self-assessment, which unfortunately is probably the thing that humans in general are weakest at. So I would I would put in place of that surrounding yourself with people who are where you want to be, who are still going the direction you want to go, who have been where you want to be, who have done what you want to do, and who can poke holes in your plan and burn it down, and then you can work with what's left standing. You know, I actually was talking to someone today about another business venture he and I have been kind of working on, and you know, I was mentioning that the more excited I am about a thing, the more of a flag that is that I need to slow down, reassess, and do my best to burn my plan to the ground so that I can see what's left standing. If I can poke a lot of holes in it, then this may not work out in the long term. So, yeah, I think self-assessment, because if you get the wrong feedback, you're going to give the wrong output. You know, it's why I'm a barefoot guy when it comes to running, which I had a long conversation with a runner this morning, and, you know, I sold them on bringing their volume down and dabbling with a little more input to the foot. And that's a different conversation entirely. Sorry. But input equals output. Good input, generally good output. Faulty input, potentially harmful output. And this is where a lot of things happen, injuries in the gym. Like, you think the wheels are doing this, but they're actually doing this, and you hit the gas, and then you blame the barbell. And the reality is, you shouldn't have been in that position in the first place. You had things to do. So, accurate self-assessment, or surrounding yourself with people who can help you with accurate self-assessment, and being willing to hear feedback and critiques on yourself without emotion. Like something I love in a relationship is when I can be told what I'm doing wrong, because I can't fix what I don't know about. And it doesn't hurt my feelings. Like, sometimes for a split second, I'll be like, what? And then, actually, I'm really glad you said that. Man, I won't do that twice. You know, like, feedback determines outcomes. So,
Good answer.
Well, I think so.
Mine would be compassion. Just in like a fitness role in general, you have to have not only compassion for others, but compassion for yourself too. Knowing that like it's not a straight shot road, lots of ups and downs. You're gonna have burnout. You're gonna have days where like you really just don't want to, and sometimes you don't know why, and you have to have compassion towards yourself in order to keep that like the ball rolling. Sometimes it's moving very slow, and sometimes you're really sad about it. But
nobody's going to do a better job by you screaming them into it, much less yourself.
Yeah.
You know, if you wouldn't scream it at your grandmother, you probably shouldn't scream it to yourself either.
And it's crazy because that's like most people, we do scream at ourselves in our head all the time. And
we are our worst critics.
Yeah, we lack a lot of compassion inwardly. Yeah.
Yeah, if they were to step outside themselves and look in as if this was your best friend with all the knowledge they have of the background, it would be a radically different approach. You know, like, that's another person. I think it's easier to have compassion for yourself maybe if you practice pretending that you're talking to another person, you know? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're good.
I'll try not to tangent again.
Oh, you're good. Pink card.
Pink.
And this will be our last pool.
Do you actively work out your core?
Yes. I love core. We're going to be doing some form of core every single workout, whether that be planks or a cable pull down or something core. And then it also assesses, I don't know if that's the right word. It assists in all your other functions when you do work on your core.
100%.
Yeah.
One of the things that I often say, and people smarter and stronger than me say, is I don't work out, I don't train, I practice. Most of the core stuff that I'll use is meant to drill in, you might call it neural sequencing, but like if I'm going to put a large load in your hands, it has to go through you to the ground. It's always going to be what connects you to the ground. Now, your core is not just rectus abdominis, you know, it's, oh boy, I'm going to try not to tangent here. it's a whole lot of muscles that involve lats, glutes, even your pecs to some degree. Like your core is all of this, pelvic floor, your diaphragm, your did I already say transverse abdominis? Your QL, your spinal erectors. Like it's a lot of muscles that need to coordinate the right way, and they need to create a lot of intra-abdominal pressure to support spinal loading, right? So to connect you to the ground. And something that I've explained the core to be, especially this plays into sports, and I get like a lot of tennis players and golfers, and if you have a crowbar that bends or twists in the middle, your crowbar is useless. Your power does not come from your spine, it comes from the ground up, in fact. And you drive through the glute. That's really the glutes and hamstrings, the posterior chain is where a lot of the power comes from, even in a rotational sport. If you want to think about change of direction or throwing a ball, that's a rotational component. We're driving internal rotation on one hip, external rotation on the other, and we're driving it very, very forcefully through the ground, and that force has to travel up through the core into the ball, racket, whatever implement you're using. So with core, I tend to think anti, though we do some active moving to actually get some hypertrophy. But generally, I don't tend to move it that much. I like to train it in the way that it's going to be used in sport. So
Yes.
I think the short answer is yes. I work out my core.
All right. We are going to hop into 4 questions that I ask every single guest. And my first one is, what is your current biggest struggle?
Current biggest struggle, I think, is a little bit of cognitive overwhelm. I have a lot of things, like I said earlier, it's difficult to differentiate which pixel to work on. Fortunately, I've got, I recently developed like advisory board that's helping me make decisions and then holding me accountable to following through on those decisions and what to do. So that has actually offloaded a lot. One business decision that I made today was really taking up a lot of like my processing over the last few weeks, and that's helped. I've been playing a lot of this. I promise this is related. I've been playing a lot of gigs lately, and learning some of the music in a way that I'm happy with the performance actually takes up a lot. And so I've been training ChatGPT to be a good teacher by talking to it over the last like 6 or 8 months and giving it as much about me as possible. Yeah, I don't care about my privacy and data. I don't care. So I've been teaching it about myself as much as possible, and it's coming back with things that have been wildly effective for me. And that actually applies both to my business, my music, even some of my own training that I've been playing with. And so that's been really interesting. So my current biggest struggle really is like managing the cognitive load, which I think today specifically, actually, it got better. Because I was able to move some of these things forward. And, after the move, there were a lot of challenges, logistical challenges that I had to kind of figure out. And there are a few things like now I have my checklist, and it's kind of prioritized until my next meeting. And so like, I'll know what to do. So that's, for me, that's always a huge struggle, is like, okay, how do I order my tasks? Like at one point, my task list was so big that one of the tasks was organize your task list. And so meeting with people, again, smarter than myself, really helps with that. And that's gotten a whole lot better. So yeah, current biggest struggle, managing it, pretty happy with where we're headed now.
Yeah.
On track.
All right. What is something you have done that you're proud of?
So I think we need to, can I just say, like, since we last spoke, something
Yes.
I've done that I'm proud of? I am pretty proud of the number of songs that I've learned. Also, I have always tried not to be this like egotistical, proud person. I've always tried to remain as humble as possible. But honestly, like, I'm 40, and I took a selfie the other day. I was like, you know what? That's not bad for 40. I feel like I've done something right. So giving myself credit, which is not a thing I've actually been very good at over time. And I'm a little bit proud of some of the accomplishments I've made in my own fitness journey. And I am very proud of my gym and my family there, and my team. And I'm just, things are so good. Like I got it good.
Okay. If you could give anybody honorable mention, who would it be and why?
It would probably be almost everybody that I've interacted with over the last month because everybody has been so helpful. But I'm going to try to keep this down to like 2 people because that really limits you, right?
Yeah.
Always Liz. Liz has been she doesn't know what a big impact she makes and how hard she works, and just as importantly, how effective she is with what she does. She's very good at prioritizing targets and just doing an absolutely phenomenal job at whatever it is she's working on. She covers my blind spots perfectly. Like I have a lot of gaps where I'm like, this is not a strong suit for me. And she's really good at calling them out and covering them and helping me through some of my cognitive struggles, So 100% would not be where I am without her.
Mm-hmm.
My boy Kai, I'm always going to shout him out because he's my dude, my son.
Yeah. All right. Last question. If you could give advice to anybody listening, what is the best piece of advice that you could give?
I have a lot of things I want to say. I'm trying to distill. I know last time I mentioned the pixels make the picture. That still very much holds true, and I think the self-assessment piece, being able to step back and being open to hearing feedback and being willing to admit maybe I don't know enough to have an opinion here, and I should learn more. I think information, we used to say knowledge is power, and it was. These days, it's not so much the information that is the power, it is your filters for the information. So I would say put a lot of time on those filters because somebody could give you advice that is very much harmful. And that's where ensuring that the people you're looking at, you become what you behold. That's where I'm going to go with this. The people you surround yourself with determine where you end up. So I think the best piece of advice that I could give is to surround yourself with the people you want to become because you will. And, there's that old saying of you are the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You are those people. And so pay attention to who you're spending time with and ask yourself honestly if that's who you want to be. If that's what you aspire to become, then spend more time with them. If it's not, I don't mean cut people out of your life and, be an asshole about it, but maybe just shunt some of your time away from the people you don't want to become and toward the people you do want to become and just kind of shift. It doesn't have to be a hard and fast, I'm cutting you out of my life. Like, that's kind of silly. Give those people your time. You still love them. Give them your time. If that's, I had this conversation with a person recently who had some friends that were holding them back, and it didn't feel like their friendship was equal. So my advice was like the same I'm saying right now is like, I'm not saying don't be friends with these people. I'm not saying don't love them. Like you should love, the real pursuit is to love everybody. That's agape, not like, I'm in love. No, that's weird. But to do what's best genuinely for everybody. And sometimes that does mean removing yourself from the equation. Maybe you're an enabler and you don't know it. But tangent after tangent, I'm so sorry. Surround yourself with the people you want to become.
Can I hang out with you? Just kidding.
If you want to be weird and awkward in social situations and you really want to love spreadsheets, cool.
Do you have any final words?
I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here. And, one of the reasons that I came on and have been doing this is over the last, always. I've been bad at putting myself and by extension my gym in the spotlight. And I'm trying to do a better job. So I'm very grateful to have this opportunity. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We love having you on.
Yeah, that's fine. I can rant all day, as you've seen. Not always making a point per se, but I'll say something.
Yeah. All right, you guys, I am giving you homework. Hit that subscribe button and share this episode and all other episodes with some of your friends. It helps us out more than you know. Also, a special shout out to our sponsors, Maximus Nutrition, CRC Roofing, Training from the Ground Up, and Orange Theory Fitness. And have a beautiful day, friends. Bye.